The 1980s AIDS crisis was marked with fear, stigma, and discrimination. People living with that disease were ostracized and removed to the outskirts of the society. Some preachers even went as far as thanking God for killing those sinners. In the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, something eerily similar happened when some elements of our society singled out Asian Americans as the dirty carriers of that China virus. For some strange reason, every time when humankind is faced with another scary disease, our first knee-jerk reaction is to blame the sick person, to stigmatize and isolate them from the healthy or normal society. But such a pattern of mindless crowd behavior does not emerge only in cases of medical emergencies. Our history of stigmatizing left-handed people or calling independent women hysterical is not really that far removed in time from witch trials or the infamous Scarlet Letter semi-legal humiliation. And sometimes such stigmatization and ostracism made way from bigoted and narrow minds to publicly accepted social norms and even religious canons. For example, once the word homosexuality was invented in 1868, it was urgently included in most of the Bible translations printed afterwards. Believe me, you will not find the word homosexual or homosexuality in any Bible whatsoever that was edited before 1871. But long before witches, homosexuals, and COVID, there was leprosy. Almost every culture and every religious institution throughout the world had agreed to treat lepers as unclean and God-forsaken pariahs that need to be marked out, isolated, and condemned to a life of misery. The word excommunication comes to mind, as they were literally removed from the community or society. Even our sacred biblical text chose that route of dealing with lepers. According to Leviticus, they must be clearly identified as unclean and sentenced to live outside towns and villages, away from normal people. Lepers, according to the Bible, could not be hugged, touched, or even permitted to enter and pray in the synagogues. If anyone who was not sick even touched a leper, such a person right away became unclean themselves. The treatment of leprosy is an early and perfect example of social and religious norms merging together to create a culture of judgment and exclusion. Now, I have given you this extensive introduction to bring your attention to one short sentence of the Gospel passage from this Sunday reading. Moved with compassion, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched the leper. Fully knowing what he is doing, being aware of the legal and religious consequences of such an action, Jesus touched the leper. According to biblical purity laws, Jesus decided to make himself unclean in order to remove the stigma and reverse the social exile or excommunication of the leper. By touching the leper, Jesus challenged his religion and his own culture of judgment and exclusion. Imagine hugging your loved one again after being forced to stay away from them for years. Imagine being allowed back in your own home. Imagine being welcomed again in your own faith community. Imagine being able to talk to your children and neighbors once again. Imagine being clean and stigma-free again. All this happened only because Jesus was moved with compassion to touch the leper and to challenge his own religious culture of exclusion. As Christians, as people who aspire to follow in the footsteps of Jesus, we would do well to imitate his compassion, to challenge our own culture of judgment and exclusion every single time it rears its ugly head again. Amen.